This election is part of an ongoing process of Recep Erdogan really consolidating his power. It's good for the markets in Turkey, it appears. Is it good for the region?
That's a very good question. A stable Turkey is important for the region, particularly now because the region is in total turmoil. And this election not only is for a new parliament, it also will be simultaneously the second direct election for a president. President Erdogan, of course, will be running with his party, the AKP. And he's hoping also to consolidate, as you said, power, because after this election, the new constitutional system, which is somewhat between the French and the American system of presidential power, will enter into effect and will complete his reform of the system to give him as president almost unlimited power in a otherwise democratic system.
Well, assuming that he wins, which seems the likely result at this point, what might it mean for the situation in Syria and our dealing with the Russians as well as the Turks in Syria? Because is he really concerned with what's going on with Bashar al-Assad, or is he much more concerned with the Kurds as a practical matter?
Certainly up to the election, because some of his allies are extremely anti-Kurdish, he has to be concerned about the Kurds. But the Kurds are a tactical and a political problem. The strategic problem for Erdogan is the same as for Israel and for the United States. It's Iran's advancement through the region, particularly in Syria, the Assad regime, and the enabling of all of that by Russia. That's an existential threat to Turkey. So as difficult an ally as it sometimes is, Turkey shares with us an interest in somehow containing this Iranian-Russian Assad regime coalition.
And yet again, we saw those purchases by Turkey of Russian military systems. So how much of an opportunity is this for Russia to win over Turkey, given the spat between Turkey and the U.S.?
Again, that's something that we worry about here, because Turkey never is 100% in one camp or another camp. They think in 19th century terms, rather like Putin himself. So therefore, most of their weapons they buy are from us or other Western countries, but then they buy some weapons from Russia. They buy gas from Russia. They have a nuclear power plant that is being provided by the Russians, so that they, to some degree, keep open their channels to the Russians, because the Russians are to their north and now to their south. But also, the Turks want to emphasize that we can't have that alliance with them cheaply. They have other options. They like to make that point. But at the end of the day, Turkey is a status quo power, like Israel, like Saudi Arabia, and essentially like the United States. Iran and Russia are not status quo powers, and that's the core difference.